Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Emil Show, where we talk about all things relational. Welcome to the Emil Show. Today I have a special guest, Jonathan Sherman, licensed marriage and family therapist. I want to give you an introduction to him so that you know who this amazing guy is. Jonathan, a licensed marriage and family therapist, is a relationship strategist. He's a sought-after speaker specializing in creating greatness in relationships. He's experienced in training people how to improve their marriages, their parenting, and themselves through skill development, family and parent coaching, overcoming depression and anxiety, stress and anger management, and addiction recovery. He's focused on three main areas with his clients. One is transforming marriages, two, training parents, and three, self-mastery. He teaches extensively on a whole range of relationship topics. He received his undergraduate training in family studies at Brigham Young University and his graduate training in marriage and family therapy at Northern Illinois University. He was the youth substance abuse coordinator for Valley Mental Health and the director of training for People Smarts. He is currently in private practice and works with clients all over the world. For 30 years, he's trained micro-organizations such as marriages and families and micro-organizations such as corporations and government agencies on how to communicate, resolve conflict, develop emotional intelligence, and improve their relationships at work and at home. He's the author of the book, 7 Principles for Building Strong Families. You will find that his writing style is clever, fun, and witty. So please welcome expert relationship in greatness, Jonathan Sherman. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what got you doing this stuff in the first place? How did you become a therapist? And then how did you start to kind of move in the direction of, because you're an expert with teens and a lot of different things. I've seen you speak. I've watched your stuff. I've even, read your book on families. So how did you get into the teen zone, especially?
The short version is I had no clue I was going to be a therapist. This was not part of the menu options. I was going to be a chiropractor, an acupuncturist, an English professor, a graphic designer. I didn't know what the heck I was going to do. Classic ADHD before we knew what ADHD was. But I was in school and I took an elective class. Somebody said I should take this family sciences class because one, it's like interesting, cool psychology from a family systems perspective. And there's a really high ratio of women to men in the class. So it was very favorable. The odds were in my favor. And I took it and it was just really fascinating. It was really interesting. I learned a lot about myself. Intellectually, it was interesting. Emotionally, it was very satisfying. Got some cool introspectives of what's going on with my own family life growing up. And so I took another one. And I took another one. And took another one. And a lot of my professors also happened to be practicing marriage and family therapists. And so I heard a lot of their stories. And it really resonated with me. And I thought, man, I could see myself doing this as a career and, make a living and make a difference, hopefully, for other people. And so as I got into it, I didn't actually know there's so many directions, of course, we can go in the therapy field, right? So many specialties and general areas and specialty areas. I didn't know that I would necessarily work with teenagers. I thought I'd work with kids mostly or something like that, or marriages mostly. But I had a couple, I started working in one of my internships was working for a youth service bureau for inner city youth. And that was really interesting. And then I eventually, one of my main jobs for a long time, for 10 years, I was the youth substance abuse coordinator for a large mental health organization. And I worked with all the court-ordered youth and their parents. And I realized that, man, I think one of my greatest assets for working with adolescents is that I've just never really matured beyond 13. I think that's probably what really works. Is I haven't forgot what it's like to be a teenager. I haven't forgotten those frustrations. Also, I wasn't necessarily the best teenager either. A lot of people, think, oh my gosh, they worry. Of course, we love our kids so much. We're in what I call perpetual freak out mode as parents. We're constantly worried about them, and it's part of the reason why they're alive, because we worried about them when they couldn't take care of themselves. And it's hard for us to let go of that. And we can certainly, that perpetual freak out is not just what's going on in the moment. We're worried. We project the worst possible case scenario about their future, and some of our kids are on really bad tracks. And I try to remind parents that yes, it is serious. We need to intervene. At the same time, we need to maintain perspective. Is because I was that kid, and yet if I can turn out and actually be a contributing member of society, I mean, if you were to go back and ask any of my middle school and high school teachers if Jonathan would be a contributing member of society, actually helping other people be responsible in the world, no, that would not be under my yearbook name, title, projection for the future. So it's we need to maintain a perspective that these are great kids.
Yeah.
They're doing stupid stuff. But my ace in the sleeve mantra working with these kids over all the years was, man, you're a great kid. You're going to figure this out. And that was good for them to hear. It was good for the parents to hear, so the parents could remind themselves to go, wait, this is a great kid. He or she's going to figure it out. It was good for me to hear because sometimes these kids are annoying as heck and it's easy to get triggered by them and stuff. And I have to remember, this is a great kid. They're going to figure it out. It doesn't mean they're doing great things. It doesn't mean we shouldn't be worried, but it means that we need to see them when no one else is seeing them. Because I've said that to many of those kids when I worked with them. These kids were totally screwing up everything. I said, man, you're a great kid. If anyone's going to figure this out, you wait and see. You're going to figure this out. And they'd be like, well, you're the only one who thinks so.
Let's think about the teenagers that therapists are seeing and that parents are dealing with. That's not a common approach.
Unfortunately not. Yeah. Well, even not just as a therapeutic approach. I remember, people would say, well, how do you like being a dad? Like, oh, I love it. And they said, well, just wait till they're teenagers. And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess so. They know. I don't know. I haven't been a parent of a teenager. They know what they're talking about. But at the same time, I felt like, man, you're kind of like harshing my mellow, man. You're kind of like raining on my parade. And I remember getting kind of a little really concerned and kind of sad about it, actually, anxious. And I remember talking with two of my colleagues, Marilee Buchanan and Julie Blanton, and they had older kids. They had teenagers at the time when I had little kids. And I was telling them this, and they both shook their head. Don't listen to those people. She said, teenagers have been the best part of our parenting. They said, but they're hard. But you know what else is hard? Babies are hard. You know what else is hard? Toddlers are hard. Elementary school age kids are hard. Every age is hard. Adult children are hard. Every age and stage is hard, but every age and stage is also wonderful. And if you tell yourself the story of all the negative doom and gloom, then that's what you're going to fixate on. Yeah. And the kids don't, as any parent of a teenager knows, teenagers don't have the ability to self-regulate their emotions real well. And if all they're hearing, going back to that kid who said, well, you're the only one who thinks I'm great. And I said, well, first of all, I say, well, that's because I'm really smart. And he kind of laughs and stuff. And I said, but
they agree with. They have to agree with that, because if you say they're great, then they go, then you're brilliant, right? That's a good trap. I like it.
That's right. Youth and the old thinker there. But the fact is, I mean, most of these teenagers, because they are screwing up, they got their parents on their back. They've got their teachers on their back. They've got the principal on their back. They've got the cops on their back, the judge on their back, the probation officer on their back, and now introduce the new member of the adult system, the therapist. And if I'm just going to be another one of the system's hired henchmen to get them to behave better and to do better and fix the broken, messed up punk, well, honestly, who wants to listen to that therapist? Who's going to be open to, how am I going to be a change agent to help this kid if I'm just another adult there? Like, yeah, I might be nice on the surface, but inwardly I'm like, we got to change you. Everyone's going to see through that. And teenagers are great. Teenagers got some of the best BS-ometers on the planet, and they don't have the sophistication to smile and nod like adults do. I love teenagers because they are honest, maybe not nicely so, but if they think you're an idiot, they'll let you know with their body language and their words. Whereas an adult, as I'm sure you've had clients in the past where maybe it wasn't the right fit, or maybe you pissed off one of your adult clients and they just kind of smile and nod and they're polite and then they never come back.
Right.
Or they give you a nasty review or something later on. But the teenagers, they don't have the sophistication to smile and nod. If they think you're an idiot, they will show it in their body language, and they'll let you know. And so you know exactly what you're dealing with. And when they know that they have pissed off so many adults in their life, and then they have this new adult who's just another adult in the system, who starts acting different than all the other adults in the system, who is actually like really actually genuinely interested in them and like really isn't interested in trying to get them to change. It's like just really wanting to get to know them. And as I get to know you, I start thinking, man, this is a great kid. Yeah, this kid's screwing up. This kid's probably going to figure it out. It's going to be really interesting to see how you figure it out. Well, how am I going to figure it out? I don't know. Do you want to try to figure that out together, or do you want to figure it out on your own? I'm happy to be with you either way. I mean, you have to be here, so it sucks. I'm sorry you have to be here because you're court ordered at this point. So, I'm happy to be here because I'm getting paid, right? And I like what I do. Sucks for you. But since you're here, let's try to make it as non-sucky as possible and maybe even possibly beneficial. And it's amazing when kids get that you actually really think they're a great kid in spite of everything that's going on. I'm not like glossing over it, like candy coating. Oh, you're so wonderful in this toxic positivity and there's nothing wrong with you and, you can do no wrong. I'll call them on their crap. I'll say they're idiots after they know how much I care, Lots of times, of course,
you first show that you recognize who they are. Mm-hmm. You find the real reasons that you could say with confidence that they're a good kid and that they'll figure it out. I mean, we've got plenty of history with your own personal experience. I think every single one of us can look back in our teenage years and go, this is not going to turn out well. And guess what? For the most part, it turns out all right. In fact, in ways that surprise ourselves and others. So those are some really good strategies.
Well, thanks, man. And that's a really good point too, is that when we look at resiliency and risk and protective factors, which is, for parents who don't know, these are the studies about what increases the success of children and adolescents through these hard times into their adult life, and what causes greater risk. So we're looking at risk factors that make things worse and protective factors that make things better. Well, besides being a nice idea to think about this way about kids, is that when we look at those kids who got through the hardest times the most successfully, universally, they had one person, at least one person, who saw through their bullshit, saw through their crap, saw who they were, and took them under their wing, or mentored them, or believed in them, loved them, whatever it was, in spite of everything else was going on. They saw that person. It's like Yuri Bronfenbrenner, one of the early child developmentalists. He said, every child deserves an adult who is irrationally, madly in love with them. And of course, these parents that we work with, they love their kids more than anything, but as any parent, we don't get training in this. We don't know how to respond to this. We don't know how to help them regulate themselves. We oftentimes don't know how to regulate our own selves, right? So we're losing our temper. We're losing our cool. We're lecturing through the roof. We're yelling. We're reacting. We're making consequences we won't follow through on, or we're not making enough consequences, and we're too permissive, or we're too controlling. We don't know where those lines are. These aren't bad parents I'm working with. Yeah, there's a few rotten kids to the core. There's a few rotten parents to the core, but the vast majority are really pretty great people as parents and teenagers, but nobody knows what the heck they're doing. Not as an insult, as a reality. We don't know what we're doing. And so the good news is that's also fixable, because you and I know what we're doing, right? Not because we're better, but because we've been trained with better. And we can pass on that training to other people. And that's where we see really wonderful but difficult kids and family situations start to turn around.
What would you say, what do you say is happening with teens today that most adults don't understand? What's going on with teens that you see, and that the adults are just going, I don't know how to cope with this? And so, of course, what we see is when parents feel anxious or concerned, they try to control. And then that creates tension, because autonomy, independence, parents being controlling, not a good fit. But what are the issues that you see that parents don't know how to deal with?
I want to ask that and back when we're done. I want to hear what your thoughts are with that too, because there's so many good answers to that. The one that came right to mind when you're talking, though, is I think a lot of parents don't realize that their kids, these teenagers, are scared crapless. They are terrified, and they have no clue how to navigate any of the stuff they're going through. That fear comes out in emotions get acted out. So it comes out in anger, it comes out in depression, comes out in anxiety and worry. It comes out in this overcockiness, this the I don't care attitudes. Oh, they care. Oh, they care so deeply. They are so worried. They don't know what they're going to do. They don't know how to solve these complex social issues that they're going through. They don't know how to manage all the stuff that's going on with their body and their sexuality. They don't know how to manage their relationships. They love their parents. They hate their parents, and they see them losing those relationships, and the parents can't handle them. And if the parent can't handle me and I can't handle me, who's going to handle me? It's terrifying. So there's a lot of answers to that great question you answered, but that's one probably at the core that oftentimes we just don't see. We're oftentimes looking at the obvious and legitimate concerns like sex, drugs, rock and roll, and all of those things. But and there's a lot of influences like social media that are problematic, of course, body image issues, eating disorders, substances, so many things that are, of course, have to be addressed as well. But I think one of the big underlying issues that we don't see is just actually how scared they are and how lonely they feel.
And parents don't see that. They see the acting out, and then they try to deal with the acting out piece.
Right. And that's what they're reacting to. They're reacting to the acting out. Right. And so then we don't realize that we have, and of course the parents are in the same boat. Parents are terrified, right? Not because they're cowards, because it's terrifying. We can sit here and go, oh, it's a great kid. They'll figure it out. But what if they don't? Yeah. I can't guarantee this kid's going to figure it out. It's a smart bet.
Yeah.
The more I believe in kids, the odds are in our favor. The more we believe and see kids this way, the more they do better. We all have that classic thing, is that we will live up to the expectations that we are given. And when the expectations are, you're such a spoiled brat, snotty little punk kid. Okay. You think this is spoiled? You think this is bratty? I'll show you. right? But it's
Yeah.
kind of like, yeah, your behavior sucks, dude. I'm really surprised to see that from such a really great person. I'm curious what's going on with that.
Doesn't
You
seem
know?
like it's working for you either, bro.
Yeah, I'm not sure how this is playing out, right? You're wanting all this freedom and control and power, and yet everything you do is reducing your freedom, control, and power in your life. That's really interesting, right? But I'm having a conversation. I'm not like criticizing them. I'm kind of laughing at the absurdity of it. And they start to realize that, oh, this guy can handle my acting out behavior. This guy isn't like trying to control me or stop me. He's just like kind of really curious and talking to me like a real person. And of course, that's easier for me and you to do as a therapist because it's not our kid. You know, I always want to be respectful that it's, hey, this isn't, I don't want to be the therapist that comes in, well, just do this and this and this. It's easy for me to be wise and compassionate for an hour with your kid when you have to go deal with them day in and day out, right? I'm not the parent in the home, you are. I respect my role, but it is important to sometimes help guide them that way. But I'm not just a therapist. You're not just a therapist. You're also
Right.
a real dad in a real home. And I'm pretty sure it's the same in your house as it in mine. Nobody gives a crap that you're a therapist in your house, right?
Nope.
Your wife's not that impressed with you. She loves you. My wife loves me. She thinks I'm wonderful, but I'm not. She's told me years ago when we first married, don't pull that therapy crap on me. Direct quote, you know.
Exactly.
And so at home, we're just dad, we're just husband, and we're just still figuring it out as just people,
Yeah.
right?
We don't get exemptions from the same principles that we teach. We have to follow them just like anybody else.
That's like anybody else. And sometimes we do well, and sometimes we fail miserably along the way. And so we're in the same boat with our parents. And that's good for them to know, too, that if something isn't working, it doesn't mean that they're failing. Sometimes it means we have to try 10 other ideas till we find the idea that works.
Yeah.
Even if the therapist gives the right answer, sometimes we still have to play around and figure out what the next thing is. I'm curious, going back to your question, like, what do you see that?
Well, yeah, I'm glad you asked. I see there's two different issues that kind of come together. You know how Rousseau, he talked about how like children are like this blank slate that we just teach, and they're just this unmolded clay that as parents we get to shape, right? It's like, okay,
They
I don't
absorb
know
our
how
wisdom.
long that theory lasted before they said that's done. But I think that there's still this lingering belief that parents have that they should be able to shape their child the way they see best.
So
and they
good,
don't
yeah.
realize that there's an entity that is also thinking for itself and deciding for itself. And if a parent feels a sense of responsibility to raise a child a certain way and it's not working, they are not equipped to deal with that, difference. That dissonance is there. And as a result, what I see with parents is their eager attempts to control, which, especially with the kid who's not, a compliant, how do I please parents kind of, temperament, that creates distance. And I think
right.
the other thing that makes this other part worse. And that is, I truly agree with you that they're just terrified, they're afraid, but they can't acknowledge it, or it's hard for them to accept it or acknowledge it.
Yeah.
The piece I think about is there is so much overstimulation with
absolutely
all the information that they're getting without responsibility.
Oh, gosh.
So you
well
think
said.
about that.
Yeah.
They have all of this fulfillment, pseudo fulfillment, feel good, with very little responsibility. Think back to when we were growing up, there were chores we had to do, right?
Right.
A variety of chores, like a lot of things.
Right.
And there was a punishment affixed that wasn't just, I'm disappointed in you. And so when we think about what's happening now, right? You know what I'm saying? And so now with kids, they have all of this feel good at their fingertips that doesn't last long. That dopamine is not increasing their serotonin, their sense of satisfaction, fulfillment in life. And so, and they don't have responsibility to give them the sense of satisfaction in life.
Right. They're not earning that satisfaction. That's such a great point.
They fight
man.
it. So they fight the expectations from the parents. The parents fight the behavior of the kids. And what should just be a little bit of friction can become a polarizing experience, to where the more the parent tries to force, the more the teenager has to rebel to feel free. And then they just get more and more polarized. We're not equipping parents to deal with these teen issues, and these parenting ideas are too old to apply to today. and they have been tested. So what we really need to do is train parents on how to navigate a sentient being. Crazy idea that this thinks for itself and acts for itself, and it isn't a computer program that we get to decide. I think that's part of where the problem is every parent has an idea how their teen's going to be, their kid's going to be. And if you have a lot of care for your kid without the strategy, you turn into control, and the teenagers start to feel a sense of power simply by the most easiest way to feel power is to rebel, which they become lost only in whatever you want me to do, mom and dad, I will resist it so that I can feel power.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I see. And you can see how that shows up in.
Absolutely. That's so well put together, man. It's almost like you know what you're talking about or something. Yeah.
Almost.
True. But it really highlights, right? It's like you talk about how we grew up, and we're gonna base how we're gonna parent based on how we grew up. And then life throws us curveballs. We didn't anticipate in our parenting internet and social media or video games to the extent, and phones in every hand, right? These devices, these dopamine delivery devices. We didn't know that this was all going to be a thing, right? And so we weren't prepared to parent it. And then of course these kids who are going to become adults, they're not going to be prepared to parent the next crazy development that comes up. And so important. I love this podcast that you're doing. So important because parents are constantly wondering what's wrong with them, that they don't know what to do. And my answer is there's nothing wrong with you. There's a lack of knowledge and training. Treat this parenting job like any other job where you need the best skills, you need the best practices, and learn from people who've already walked down that path a few miles ahead of you, right? Too many parents I see are trying to recreate every wheel that's already been created a million times, right? It's not just that you're the expert, Emil, or that I'm the expert and we should listen to us, is that we are the expert because we've walked with thousands of other parents who through their expertise we've learned from their trials and their errors. And then we have the benefit of millions of other parents in our back pocket from all the data and research. We don't have to go it alone. You know, it's not that you're the guru or I'm the guru. We just acquired the knowledge to pass it on. And I think too many parents are going it alone and too many kids are going it alone. Yeah. And that creates that fear, that creates that we don't know what to do, so we control more what we don't understand. We control more in the wrong ways with the best intentions, but in the wrong ways. And and that ability to regulate, we don't have. Kids don't have that ability to regulate that dopamine. I love your point that you made, is that they're getting all the reward with no responsibility, no discipline to earn it, no requirement to get that good feeling. It's just easily handed to them. And then a lot of parents, I mean, I am very glad that we're no longer using the belt and other types of forms of corporal punishment. Of course, what we do when we get rid of one bad thing, we swing the pendulum too far to some good things. And now we have over gentle parenting. And I'm a very gentle man. You're a very gentle person. We're compassionate, loving. We like to listen to our kids and try to understand. But the fact is, we've gone too far the other way, right? Where parents are afraid to discipline their child, right? And they think of discipline as something that's harsh. Discipline comes from the Latin root word disciplis, which is the same word that disciple comes from. Disciplis means learner. We discipline so that our children can learn because they're capable learners. We just need to learn methods of discipline that actually truly teach them, that train them, that guide them. And to be a learner, you have to have a good student. And if we as the parents don't know how to teach it in a way that transmits to them, we've all had teachers growing up, good teachers that we remember, we're so grateful for, they inspired us to want to learn. And then we had crappy teachers, and they might have both taught the same subject. They might have both been right about the subject, but the way they taught matters tremendously. Yeah. And lots of us as parents, we don't know the way to teach it. We might be 100% right in our rules and our needs and our expectations, but we don't know how to deliver it. And so it's okay for us to get, just like we need teachers to get teacher training, and in business, we need to get business training. It's okay as parents to get parent training and to go, there's nothing wrong with me that I don't know how to do this.
I guess it's been changing lately. Like more and more people speak more and more openly about getting help, getting coaching. It's almost like
I've been so happy to
you're
see
not
that.
you're not getting help. Like, are you out of your freaking mind?
Yeah, it's been
like,
such a shift.
You got to see my therapist.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's been such a shift that you and I have seen even just in the past 10 years, even the past 5 years, around where that stigma has dropped around a lot around that it's normal and okay. And even, people see it as an asset to go seek help and get training. And in
Yeah.
therapy. And so I'm really glad to see that. And I think a lot of, there's a lot of downside to the social media stuff, but there's also been a lot of really strong voices, younger therapists who are putting out really great content, and really using that medium to normalize a lot of issues and give words to things that we only had the words for privately in the therapist office, right? So there's a hopeful side too, and I think the hopeful side is that we can use means like this that you're doing to really get the word out more to people who really, I think these parents we work with, no one gives a bigger damn about their kids. No one's going to love them more. The therapist isn't going to do a better job than they are, right? Because we can have the better answers, but we're not the ones in the home dealing with it, right? We need to train and support these parents, not because they're screwing up their kids, but because no one's going to be a better therapist than a well-trained, well-informed parent.
Yeah.
Who really knows how to respond and knows how to regulate their own emotions as the parent so that we don't lose it when we're trying to parent our kids, right? Not because anger is bad, but because anger just doesn't work for us and it blocks our very goals. And so learning how to manage our mood as parents is a big part of parenting. It's not just how do we discipline better. Part of that discipline is the self-discipline as well.
You're doing awesome. I love it.
Thanks, buddy.
I want you to kind of redirect this energy into the defiance, rebellion, that the common issues that parents and therapists are seeing now.
Mm-hmm.
We see a lot of depression. We see a lot more anxiety than we ever have seen before.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We see a strong sense of defiance, rebellion. One of the things I see a lot of is, a lot of substance abuse, where it becomes so normalized in certain communities that to not smoke weed or drink and party means you have to be a social pariah. You're an outcast.
Right.
And so there's this like social pressure. And when you think about here's parents that care, well, guess what? I hate to tell you this. You're not surrounded by a lot of other parents that are in the same boat. You're in a community and it seems like other parents are like, I just hope my kid figures it out. I got a life to live, and I'm sorry that your little boy Johnny has to deal with my little boy Carl, and Carl's a rebel, and I don't have the time, energy, or the knowledge on how to parent him, so I just hope he doesn't go to jail very many times. That's their strategies.
Right.
When you think about that, there's parents, because the parents that are watching this, listening to this, are the ones that are going, how do I help Johnny? Like, I've got a Johnny, or I've got a Kimberly, and I don't know what to do. So how do you frame that behavior, the defiant, argumentative, rebellious behavior? How do you frame it? How do you make it make sense? And then what would be a way for you to kind of help them as a therapist? And then the final piece would be for the parents that care and want to do something, what do you tell them?
Gosh, great questions. And it's something that everyone's relating to what you're saying. I guarantee it. Everyone who's listening is like, yeah, what do we do with that? So one, as far as reframing defiance, a lot of great therapy models that we subscribe to that help us navigate things with our clients. One of my favorites is the solution-focused therapy model. And one of the tenets of solution-focused therapy, which was very radical when it first came out as a model, was that there's no such thing as resistance. Too often we think about a resistant teen. I actually just did a training on this with this worldwide conference on the myth of the resistant teen. And solution-focused therapy, the tenet is there's no such thing as a resistant client. And it's not just teenagers. Therapists for years have complained about, well, this client won't do this client won't do that. They're so resistant. We've got the right answers. They're not doing this. Well, it's the same thing with parents and their kids and stuff. And so it's like, well, wait a minute, but they are being resistant, Jonathan. They're not doing what I say. You're right. The behavior is resistant. But the tenet of solution-focused therapy is that there's no such thing as a resistant client. There's only a resistant therapist who won't learn what the resistance, quote unquote, is about. And I've seen the same thing in my parent training. I've seen the same thing with my own relationship with my own kids, is that when I see them only as resistant, I don't learn what the function of the problem is. Why are they being resistant? How is resistance serving them? How is it protecting them? How are they using it as a way to cope? How are they learning it as a way to manage? How are they using it as a way to gain power when they feel powerless? Gain control when they feel like they don't have any control? And all those things are going back to managing that fear. And so if we only see as resistance, we're only going to deal with the surface behavior. And we might be correct that the surface behavior is wrong. We are. But that's like dandelion weed management. If we just mow over the weeds on the top, we don't solve the problem. We solve it for a day or two until they all pop up again. but learning why is the kid resistant and what can I learn from that? And I can't learn if I'm not going to take the time to really ask and listen. Usually we'll ask, and then when the kid starts to explain, we start to argue and correct and lecture and re-guide and redirect and things like that, right?
So you're trying to focus on what are they getting out of the resistance? Like what's their, there's obviously something they're gaining, whether it's a sense of control, a sense of power. What else are you looking for to avoid the battle of compliance, in therapy? Like you need to comply, which really empowers the teenager. What are some other strategies to circumvent that, to avoid the power struggle as therapists and as parents? To identify the purpose and maybe help find a solution to helping them not be so defiant.
I think you and I could do a master class on this and answer that question over 20 hours, right? There's so many great avenues into that. One that comes to mind, though, is just staying on this one theme, is watch their body language for when they show you the in. Because they have all this resistance, they're blocking you. One of my favorite examples, I've got a lot of these stories of these resistant, difficult kids. I'm going to say this first to brag on myself for a minute, just to illustrate this point. I am really good at getting kids to feel comfortable, teenagers especially, and to open up. And the most resistant kid I can usually get laughing within the first few minutes, or at least within the first hour, and make them feel good that they came. I'm really good at that. That being said, about 10 years ago, this 16-year-old girl comes into my office, dragged and, of course, forced by her mom. Often, either if they're not court ordered, they're parent ordered, right? Very few teenagers are coming in because, Mom, Dad, I want therapy. Some do, but not a lot of these tough kids, right? And she comes in, serious anger management issues, acting out behaviors, cutting, suicidal, serious depression. And Mom brings her in. The girl won't make eye contact with me. She just sits down on the couch there, plops down, you can just see the hatred and the loathing and the resistance and the anger just oozing out of every part of her body, right? And just growl and glare. That's a new word. I was thinking scowl and glaring the whole time. And her mom talks to me for a little bit, give me some history, kind of what their goals and concerns are and whatnot. And then I excuse Mom after about a half hour. And then I've got an hour left to sit with this girl. And I'm trying all the tricks in my bag because I'm good at this, right? I've already clarified how good I am. I'm the best, right? I'm so good at getting kids to open up. She was better. She was way better. Her resistance was way better than all my bags of tricks. And no matter what I tried to get her to talk, open up, nothing. Not a peep, not an argument, nothing. And then at one point, I'm just trying everything. I mean, just the most basic questions. Like one question I finally threw out that landed was, so who do you like to listen to? Like, what's your favorite music? She looks up at me with a look of disgust and disdain and says, One Direction, why the F do you care? With no editing, and then looks right back down. And nothing else the rest of the session. And of course now most teenagers, they're expecting what kind of reaction from an adult, a therapist or a teacher or a parent. What are they expecting? Don't swear. You can't talk that way.
Yeah, we're going to correct them right away.
Correct them right away. How many parents, and one reason I had to excuse the mom is because she kept telling her daughter, you need to talk, otherwise therapy isn't going to work. And I thanked her. I said, well, I'll manage how therapy works. And I excused her very politely. And it's like, no, the kids don't have to talk for therapy to work. As the therapist, I need to work to make therapy work. It's not the kid's job to make therapy work. There's these myths around therapy. Well, you have to want to go to therapy for it to work. You have to, want it to, you have to be open and talk. It's like, that's great in an idealized situation, but most kids who are coming to therapy, that's the last place they want to be. So anyway, I got nothing out of her the rest of the session, but she showed me inwardly. So outwardly, she's expecting me to get upset. I showed no frustration, whatever. What she didn't see was my inner smile. She showed me the door. She gave me one body language connection. It was angry, it was mean, but she looked me in the eye when she said, One Direction, what the F do you care? And I go, well, she won. Now I spent the next week listening to One Direction. And I want you to imagine, Emil, how much do you think I'm into boy bands?
Boy bands? No. Music? Yeah.
Music,
rock
yes,
and roll?
but
yeah.
Absolutely, but not boy band, pop glurge. I'm not really that interested in that. I spent the next week listening to most of their music, reading their lyrics, learning who is who, not to try to be cool and hip. When therapists try to do that and try to be down and dope and cool and relate with the teenagers, big mistake. Kids, that's just so cringy to the kids. So I wasn't doing it for that reason. Why the F do you care? That's also, she's teaching me how many adults say they care, but they don't really. Okay. So next time she comes in, she comes with the exact same attitude. She's not softened. And I say, so last time you said that you liked One Direction. She goes, yeah. So I said, well, yeah, I didn't know anything about them. So I started listening to them because I was just kind of curious. I love music, but I don't know if I'd like your music or not. She goes, you did? I said, yeah, I listened to this song and this song. And I'll be honest, most of it isn't really my style of music, but I really like this song and this message. And I quoted a lyric or two, and she looks up and she goes, yeah, it's one of my favorites. Is it really? I didn't know which ones were the better ones. What do you like about it? And she starts telling me, and we start talking. And then for the next 3 months at full fee, this mom paid for her daughter to talk to the therapist about One Direction, because that's all we talked about for 3 months, week after week after week. We didn't address her behavior. We didn't address her cutting. We didn't address her suicide. And it's not that we're ignoring that.
Right.
She showed me, if I'm going to resist her teaching me what she cares about, and I try to stay focused on what we need to deal with, then I'm resisting her. And so that 3 months on the surface to that mom initially looked like, why am I spending this much money for her just to come in and just chat with you? And I spent some time on the side explaining the underlying theory of what's going on. Long story short, after that initial 3 months of building an authentic trust where she knew I was really, really cared, she started to ask other questions. She goes, so do you think, she said, I have this dream that I worry that you probably think I'm going to be crazy. You're probably going to say I'm crazy like everybody else does. Well, now she's worried what I think. The first she didn't care at all. Now she's wondering, what do I think? Well, if she wonders what I think, I might be able to share some of my thoughts down the road, but not too soon. And her dream was that she thought that she'd be able to, if she could somehow escape her horrible situation and get to a One Direction concert and get in the front row, that the lead singer would see her, they'd make contact, and he'd pull her up on stage, they'd kiss, and they'd fall in love, and he'd whisk her away from all of that. And she says, everyone I tell that, she thinks I'm crazy. Do you think I'm crazy? I said, I don't know if that's realistic or not, but I'll tell you one thing I do know is I know a lot about crazy dreams. And I shouldn't be able to do what I do. This is my dream. And I told her about the problems I had growing up and how I'm a stutterer. I shouldn't be able to talk fluently and make a life and career out of speaking, and a therapy that a job that relies on being able to speak well, and so many other things that I went through. And so many of my clients, I said, I spend all day long helping people create dreams that are crazy, that seem impossible. Maybe not like yours, but I don't know. I don't know if it's crazy or not, but it sounds like it's important to you. And I'm really curious, why is it important to you? So we spent more time talking about that. Then we started talking about, well, what if? I don't know if it's possible or not, but do you know how much it takes, how much it, when their next show is? Do you have money to get to a concert? Do you have a way to get there? Well, do you have a driver's license even to get yourself there? Well, no. I said, well, let's start figuring out how to get money and how to gain skills. And so we started spending time doing life skills around this crazy dream, because I'm not resisting trying to get her to think realistically. And in that, a lot of reality starts to happen. All this being said, this is a course over 9 to 12 months. Well, 10 years later, long story short, she's a young mother, and several times a year she reaches out to me for help or guidance or support from someone who refused to resist her. Now she's open to everything I have to share. And that's just, it'd be nice if that was just one random example that kind of like you see in weight loss commercials. Results not typical. That's not helpful, right? We want to, but this is not common. She's one of the harder kids that I worked with, and there's a lot more depth to her story and why it was so hard and how long this process took. But no adults were going to take that kind of time to take her that seriously over something so ridiculous. But the underlying need was important, even if the surface behavior was messed up. And she, of course, she didn't kill herself, thankfully. She stopped cutting. She learned to manage her mood and temper more. And it's easier as therapists who are well-trained, who are dealing with a client either several times a week or once a week, or in an inpatient program where we have, a lot of support staff in a residential program who are all trained the same. It's easier for us to have the right answers compared to a parent who's dealing with this kid 24/7. Who doesn't have a support team and network, who is parenting in isolation or parenting in opposition with the other parent. And so these answers I'm giving are good, but they're also really hard. And we have to figure out, how do we take this idea and help a real parent in real time learn to do that? And some of the ways that we can start doing that is one exercise I would give parents is just go home and listen to your kids' music with them, but practice listening while you're breathing deeply. Practice listening past the parts you disagree with. Practice listening to, why would this be meaningful to them? What is it about the beat or the rhythm or the message or the or the excitement of the rebelliousness. And if you can't connect with that on some level, that's okay, but be aware that if you can't relate to that on some level, you don't have to agree with it, but on some level you can't relate to it, it's going to be hard to relate to them in other areas. And so using that as kind of a parenting exercise, just by listening to their music and practice suspending judgment, breathing deeply to calm and regulate yourself so you're learning to not be reactive, learning to open yourself to part of their world. If you want to get them into your world, we have to enter into their world. Because now she seeks me out, right? And now she seeks out my counsel and advice.
It seems like your intervention is use all the tools in your toolbox to first create a connection.
That's the number one
There's
game.
something, I mean, we know that there's therapeutic potency in the connection alone.
That's it.
And so I think, oftentimes as parents and sometimes as therapists, the focus is on the treatment plan or the objectives and the tasks. And so it's about correcting behaviors. But of course, if they don't feel connected, then there's no point for leverage, like psychological leverage, so that they do open their minds. So connection is the go-to. And once the connection happens, then you've got a host of other resources, perspective, training, different modalities of intervention. But none of those actually seem to be effective without a connection.
Absolutely, so right. It's the old saying is that no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Right? It's old wisdom. And I had a residential therapist colleague of mine, a younger therapist, newer therapist, call me up. She'll sometimes staff a difficult case with me outside of her organization just to get a different perspective. And she said she's working with this 17-year-old teenager who's not following her treatment plan. I said, well, is it her treatment plan? She goes, well, yeah, it's her treatment plan because we established it in our first session. I go, yeah, but is it her? Whose pressure is it to follow the treatment plan? Is she really wanting to follow this treatment plan, or has this now become your treatment plan for her? Does this become your staff's treatment plan for her? Has this become the center's treatment plan for her? Or is it her treatment plan? No, it's her treatment plan. She wants it. I said, yeah, but who's actually pushing for it, you or her? Well, so it's actually your treatment plan. It's not her treatment plan.
But she signed the bottom of the treatment plan.
Yeah. I said, yeah. I said, that's not how it works. I said, I need you to slow down, let go of this expectation, because you're actually feeling pressure from your team and you're feeling it. And then she's feeling it through you, that she's not conforming and now she's a resistant client. I said, I know this girl really well, this therapist. She grew up in my neighborhood as a kid and stuff. So I said, you are so fun. You are so good at being silly and connecting. I want you, in spite of all the other advice you're getting from your wonderful team, and they're a good team of people, I would definitely recommend to their center. But I said, sometimes we get in our own way, even as therapists. I said, how about you let your client direct every session for the next month and go out on a walk with her in your session and go grab a milkshake together and just stop trying to guide therapy and just see what happens organically without trying to have it be quote unquote therapeutic. And a month later, she's like, man, it's like magic. It's like all of a sudden she's opening up and really interested in what I have to share because she's scared. She wants solutions, but she can't have them crammed down her throat. These kids still need discipline. She's still in a center. She still needs discipline. We as parents, we still can give our kids consequences, as we still have to give them structure, but we can give them structure that's non-emotional. Sorry, pal, this is just the rules and this is just the consequence that goes with it. I know it sucks. I know it does suck, and it may seem stupid, but this is just what we're doing. I'm going to give that much emotion to the enforcement of the consequence with a strict enforcement of the consequence. But then when it comes to what they're interested in and their frustrations, and they're talking about this person at school and this dumb teacher, I don't need to get them to like their teachers. Well, your teacher sounds like an idiot. I had an idiot teacher like that too. Let me tell you about that. I'm going to give lots of emotion to your frustration, right? I'm not going to be frustrated with you. When you're acting out, I'm going to give calm emotion and a strict structure. And when you're frustrated with your emotion, I'm going to give big emotion with your emotion, not against your emotion. When you're frustrated with this person, or even with me, like, well, you're an idiot, Dad. Well, that is not the first time I've heard that, pal. Not sarcastically.
Right.
Son, I've made a lot of mistakes growing up. I've made a lot of mistakes. Well, then if you've done this, how come you're a hypocrite? Now you won't let me do it. I said, pal, because my job is to hopefully be smarter than I was dumb, And so I know it's frustrating though, and it really sucks, you know. I can join with them in the frustration of the system. I'm that system. I can join in the frustration of their teachers or other people. I don't have to fix every thought with them. I can give them a strong structure and then give them a lot of emotion about their frustration. And a lot of parents are like trying to fix everything all at once, and there's too many blocks there. You know, we can't do all that. They need to know that even though the parent or the system is going to give us a firm structure, that they still relate and they still care and they still get it, and that they're worried about my behavior, but they've got confidence in me. They see me, and they see me past my idiocy. You know, that girl that I was talking about, I was actually saw that her crazy fantasy about One Direction actually was important to her. And I was really interested enough to actually take on the clock time. I didn't get paid for listening to any of that One Direction band, right? But she said that obviously that communicated that, wow, he really cares outside of what he's getting paid for. He really wants to understand me. And whether that's with a client or whether it's with our own kid, you know, and no one's going to love these kids more than these parents that we're working with, right? That's our ace in the sleeve in working with these parents, and that's their ace in the sleeve with their kid. The bad behavior gets in the way of the love sometimes, and we forget this is a great kid. They're going to figure it out. We forget that message.
As we wrap up, if you were to take a couple of minutes and you now have the undivided attention of parents who are leaning on the edge of their seat, dealing with struggles with their teenager, you got therapists that are curious and interested in words of wisdom on how to help parents and equip parents to deal with the teenagers, what thoughts would you share with them?
Whether it's listening to me or Emil, one of the best bits of advice I can give is stop doing it alone. Most parents are parenting in isolation. We don't have the village, and parents are doing all different types of things. One of my favorite parenting classes I ever taught was this woman contacted me and said, would you be willing to do an in-person, in-home parenting class for me and all my neighbors and my family? I'm like, heck yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was a great gig, and it was like a 8 or 12-week class in her home. They had a nice big open space, a great room. And there was probably 20 people there, friends, family, and neighbors. Where does that happen? Where everyone's getting this? It was a Parenting with Love and Logic training, which is a really great parenting book. There's a lot of great parenting books out there. That's probably one of my favorite go-tos. It's really practical. So as far as something people can take is go get the Parent in Love and Logic training. But all these 20 people, friends and family and neighbors, were getting the same training together. So what do they have? The same language. So they start to have the same expectations. And so they could support each other in their parenting. Because one of the problems that a lot of parents have is not only they're parenting in isolation, they're parenting in confusion and conflicting messages. Honestly, at the end of the day, I don't care which parenting method somebody uses, but pick one and get really good at that one. Too many times we're like, this expert said this expert said this, Jonathan said this, Emil said that, this book says this says that, my mom says this, my way I was raised said that, my husband was raised this way, my wife was raised that way. And so it's very inconsistent. And so when I talk about parent training, I think about animal training. Animal trainers are hyper consistent in how they train the animals, and they do it without anger. They do it with strategy. And very few parents have learned the strategies. We haven't learned how to regulate our emotions, and we don't know how to be consistent in one strategy and stuff. And so tongue in cheek, don't listen to me, go listen to Emil and take his program. Yeah, is also serious, whether it's Emil's program or working with me or someone else. Get a method, get support. Don't go it alone. Don't parent in isolation. There's nothing wrong with you that you can't figure it out. All that's wrong is that you're lacking information and skills. And knowledge and skills are highly curable if we lack those.
Yeah, we can treat that. You guys, this is Jonathan Sherman, LMFT. He's been doing this for about 30 years now. He's been working in the trenches in all sorts of different situations, from mental health. You know, now he's been in private practice for a long time. He's a very popular and well sought out speaker on a variety of topics with not only teens, but relationships in general. He's got a fantastic website. Is it Relate Great? What's it called?
RelateGreat.net. And if I can just go ahead and speaking of plugs, since you're on that line that you're going, if you go to RelateGreat.net /strong fam, Strong Fam. You can learn about my 7 Principles for Building Strong Families program that I've taught to these kids and these parents for years. I've taught in professional conferences. I've taught in churches and communities and in treatment programs. And it's all that information there. It's a very strength-based, solution-focused. It's not another program that's going to list all the things you're doing wrong. It's going to be building on the strengths your family already has. And so your podcast listeners can get 20% off with code STRONG20 at relategreat.net forward. Yeah, relategreat.net/strongfam. Hope that was okay to plug myself.
Yeah, the book is called Building Strong Families, 7 Principles to Strengthen Your Parenting and Partnering.
Yes, sir.
Right. It's just fantastic book. If you haven't gotten it, make sure you get it. Plus, you're going to get a taste of his sense of humor, his colloquial communication, just his down-to-earth approach.
Thanks, man.
And it's rich in theory, even though it doesn't taste, you'll get it and you'll be like, it's filled with deep experience, even though he's a conversationalist. He's not trying to wow you and dazzle you with long multi-syllable, terms. It's like the stuff that you could teach a 3rd grader and they're like, wow, this is brilliant. So Jonathan, I hope to have you back
buddy.
Again. Your
Anytime.
material's fantastic. You're enjoyable to listen to. You guys, thanks for Jonathan, and I hope you stick around and listen to more experts on relationships as we go through the Emil Show, talking about all things relational.